everyone. Welcome to the Name One Player podcast. My name is Nicole. I am your host. And before we get into the episode, I just want to say a huge, heartfelt thank you to every single person for listening today. It means the absolute world to me, and I'm so appreciative that you are here. If you haven't already, I would love it if you could subscribe, like the episode, rate the episode. I think 5 stars, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. Depending on the platform you're listening on, you may be able to leave a comment, say hi, say how you're doing today, whatever it may be. I just love hearing from all of you and engaging with all of you. Today we have a fun episode. We have Kara on. I connected with Kara through TikTok. I feel like I'm connecting with most of my guests these days, but TikTok really has built this community of women who love sports, and the women that I've connected with are all just so phenomenal. Kara's TikTok, she had this really cool TikTok talking about the idea of wearing, kind of like fancy-ish outfits to games, something just not like a jersey and jeans and sneakers, whatever. And the feedback that she gets from that when she does wear those kind of outfits with maybe heels or dresses, whatever it may be. And I saw that and immediately I was like, girl, this is a conversation for the Name One Player podcast if I've ever heard one. So we arranged for her to come on. Kara is a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. She's always talking about the Maple Leafs on her TikTok. I've learned so much about the Maple Leafs from her TikTok, and I'm excited to learn more about this season because from the research I've done, and I haven't watched any Maple Leafs games this season, but from the research I've done, it seems like a very interesting season so far. Of course, it's only November. The season still is like kind of in its formative stage, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's still early, but it kind of seems like we're at this moment where it's like, what is going to happen with the Maple Leafs? Are they good? Are they not good? Who knows? So I'm so excited to get all into Kara's thoughts on that. Kara also has a very extensive background in user experience design and research, and she has such a cool vision of taking that UX design, research, psychology, and hockey and combining that to kind of build the community and make it inclusive and easily accessible for all. But I will let her get into all of that because she's going to explain it so much better than I did. So yeah, I think let's just hop into the episode. I'm super excited for this one. I hope you all love it, and I think it's going to be a good one. All right, everybody, without further ado, please welcome Kara. All right, everybody, we have Kara on here with us today. Kara, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am doing well too. But Kara, tell me and everybody listening a little bit about yourself.
So, my name is Kara. I'm 25 and I mainly live in Michigan, but I do bounce back and forth between Toronto and Michigan. I work about 5 jobs because I'm trying to get into hockey right now. I did a UX design program, and then I'm trying to apply everything I learned to the fan experience to kind of grow the
Yeah.
sport and make it more inclusive and honestly all around just more fun. My dream is that the NHL could be bigger than the NFL in the US someday. So that's
Wow.
my dream is to get everybody on the wagon.
Okay, that is so cool. And you know what? We have a whole kind of section of this podcast episode to talk about UX design and your background with that, and pretty well everything that you just said about wanting to make hockey more inclusive. And we'll also get into your content creation on TikTok. But like you said, I had no idea you were not from Toronto. I see you all the time wearing your Maple Leafs gear. So I'd love to hear, how did you become a Maple Leafs fan?
So I went to Michigan State University in my undergrad I
Okay.
started in 2018,
Okay.
and I was very shy. I didn't go out much, and to try to get out of my shell, I went to a hockey game for MSU.
Okay.
The student tickets were cheap. I went and I loved it. I loved how fast-paced the game was. I loved kind of everything about it. And then when it came time to choose an NHL team, I'm very spiritual and I said, which one just feels right? So I chose
Love it.
Toronto. Kind of
Love
loved the
it.
vibes, loved the aura, loved the fan base. Everyone was so passionate that was
Yeah.
that is a good learning environment for me as I learn the sport. So that's kind of just how I chose Toronto, which I know a lot of people kind of have an issue with that because they're like, oh, you should be where you live or all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, life is short. Let's all just have a little fun.
Exactly. I love that. How you're like, yeah, let's just go off of vibes. And that's a
Yeah.
whole different conversation. I feel like I could do a whole episode on men in particular getting mad at women in particular for their reasons for liking whatever sports teams. And I feel like if you told, there's a lot of men out there, if you just told them, like, yeah, I just like went off of vibes and I like Toronto's vibe, they'd be like, no,
Yeah.
that's not a
Their
good enough
face, like,
reason.
gets red. They like it so
Yes.
angry.
Yes, and then it's like you ask a lot of men, like, why they like the teams that they like, and they'll be like, "Oh, I was just watching a game and I liked the color of their jersey, so then I picked their jersey." And it's like, that's a
Yeah.
completely valid reason. Like, of course, if you've never watched a sport before, if you're like getting into it, you might have a team in your city or whatever, but like sometimes you just don't want to like the same team that every single person around you is liking. You want to pick for yourself, not for
Yeah.
your city or whatever. And
And
like
the Red
that's a
Wings, like,
perfectly valid
come
reason.
on, guys. Like, I
Yeah.
had it was the closest ones to me, I guess geographically there's a few, but I was kinda between the Blackhawks in Chicago and
Mhm.
Detroit and Toronto, and I was like, "Blackhawks and Red Wings, let's be so real." I'm like, "You really think I'm into hockey and I'm gonna watch those teams with so much love? Like, I'll watch them after Detroit rebuilds." So, yeah, so can you blame a girl for going to Toronto?
Absolutely not. Well, okay, this is why I laugh though too, because being on the West Coast, like I just always know Toronto sports. I mean, yeah, maybe the vibes are good at the beginning, but like they'll break your heart every
Yeah.
time. So you have maybe have the passionate fan vibes, but I don't know that you have the I mean, definitely not the winning vibes, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate,
we get
but
close though. Like
yeah,
like
and
for like last season, I was like for most of the season we did so well and I felt on top of the world. I felt like better than everyone. And
yeah.
then you crash and burn. But at least I have that taste of victory.
Okay, so Toronto fan, you're in it, you're hooked. My question for you though, how are you feeling about their season so far?
I feel so many things.
Yeah.
Honestly, emotional roller coaster since the season has started. My favorite meme to come out of this season so far has been the Lioness does not concern herself with Leafs October hockey because that they fumble every October.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to let that get into my brain too much, but I think they're starting to find their groove. I was not very hopeful beginning of the season, especially now that we don't have Mitch Marner. Also, I want to add, I studied psychology for my bachelor's, so
Okay,
I
same.
kind
Love
of view
that.
the world, like, through a psychology lens. So when
Love
Mitch
that.
Miller left, I thought to myself, "Okay, not only are we now going to have a gap in playing, like, on
Yeah.
the ice,
Yeah.
we're now going to have a gap in the locker room. We're gonna have a gap in kind of the dynamic, like, social dynamic, how people feel the energy going into the game and all this stuff," because he was such a big part of that.
And just to interrupt you for a second, did he leave and kind of say that the atmosphere in Toronto was not good?
So, so Toronto is very passionate. Sometimes so passionate that it can be to a fault.
Mhm.
So he was part of the core four, and when that kind of started to fall apart, people started hating Mitch Marner a lot. They said he was supposed to be this hometown golden boy that was going to win us the cup. What
Yeah.
happened? And it got to the point where people found his address and were kind of like threatening his family.
Oh my
It's
god.
like,
Valid then on his part.
yeah. So I was
For
like, well,
sure.
you'd probably leave too.
But I love what you said too about you studied psychology. I studied psychology as well, and I feel like I'm thinking about that all the time in sports. I particularly love football. For me, what it always is when the kicker is on a shitty streak
Sure.
and I'm just like, "Oh my god." Like especially if they lose the game, I'm like the sports psychologist, like I'm so curious what those
Yeah.
conversations are afterwards. But that's a really good point to what you said too about like the locker room and that's, like, almost like my dream episode. I always think of, like, JoJo being like, "My dream guest on my podcast?"
Yeah.
Mine is a sports psychologist for a professional sports team
I
because
would watch that so fast.
I'll go on LinkedIn, I'll try to find somebody, but, like, it's so true. It's like, what are they talking about in the locker room? What sort of conversations are they having, like, mindset and just even grief in a sense? Like you said, this core
Yeah.
4, and now one of them is gone with, like, a little bit of I don't know what the correct word is. I don't know hostility. I don't know the situation. I don't know if he left with hostility or not. But now, like, leaving the team, and you see so many teams and talking about baseball and, like, the Blue Jays, that team chemistry was like chef's kiss.
Beautiful.
Is the Maple Leafs team chemistry like that right now, or is it a little bit off?
So here's my interesting little point is that I was curious about this the other day because all of October they suck. With so
Okay.
much love to the team, they sucked.
Okay.
November hits and all of a sudden they're winning again. And everyone's
Yeah.
like, what was the change? Someone even asked William Nylander, they said, what's the sudden change? Why are you guys winning? And he said it
Yeah.
was our Halloween party. We had a awesome party. And I was like, okay, first of all, T. Second of all, there you go. I think that was so much of it is we had all these new players come in at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Lost Mitch Marner, we lost a couple other people, and it's a whole new dynamic between everybody. So I think, obviously, I don't know the behind the scenes, but probably having that Halloween party and having them have a space to be social, get to know each other, connect more, and on the ice, you're in flow with each other. So I think that was a big thing where now I'm kind of starting to feel like they're getting their chemistry back and kind of rearranging now that Mitch is gone. Still have some work to do, but they're definitely getting there.
That chemistry piece is so, so, so important. And I really do think, like, obviously, you have the teams that do win that don't have that bond, I think is the best
Mhm.
word for it. But, like, you can see the teams. I feel like you watch teams play and then you immediately are like, okay, they like each other.
Yeah.
They go to the locker room and they're not like angry and hostile and like resentful of each other. You
Mhm.
can tell a major difference between the teams that do that.
I would love to actually jump in and say something about that because I started
Yes.
working with a startup in Toronto, and we were just talking about kind of the concept of winning. And they introduced me to this concept of don't focus on your position as far as like I'm winning or like I've won and all this stuff. Focus on your trajectory. Each day
Okay.
you're getting better.
Yeah.
Like if each day you're getting better and your trajectory is good, then
Yeah.
time is your friend basically. And it's like, okay, you have these good habits, you have these good qualities that are sustainable, and your trajectory is good. It's like you're getting better and better and better. So it's just a matter of time before you do win. But then
Yeah.
your teams that maybe don't have that, and maybe they did win like a championship or something.
Mhm.
Got to that point, they have the trophy, but what's your trajectory? Are you guys still gonna
Mm.
be increasing? Maybe you'll take a nosedive and then you're not gonna win for 10 years. So I think that's something that I always keep in mind, especially with the Leafs, is that people
Yeah.
always talk about just acting as though the seasons are independent from everything else. But I'm like,
Yeah.
you need to look at the trajectory over the years and like what's happening. So that's kind of
Totally.
yeah.
Oh my god, girl. I completely agree, and that's a really good segue because I did wanna ask you, like, talking about the Leafs, did they get out the first round of the playoffs, or did they make it to the second last season? Do you remember?
Um,
They beat Ottawa, right?
Yeah, so we got to I think it was the second round, and
Okay.
then we were eliminated in the second round, which is my favorite because everyone with the Leafs is always like, "Oh, are you guys excited for a first round exit?" And I'm like, "Well, last last time we
Well, we went
lost
one
in the
more
second
round.
round."
Didn't
But
make the finals, but that's fine. But
right.
you know what? Honestly, the Stanley Cup, I don't even think this is a hot take. I think everybody agrees, well, mainly. But like that is the hardest championship to win in any sport, I think. Like
Yeah,
crazy, and like the physicality of hockey and the fact that you're doing that multiple rounds is absolutely nuts. But
yeah.
what you said too about like it's not just the one season, it really is the trajectory. And I know Mitch Marner leaving, huge loss. But
Mhm.
what were you hoping for after that playoff exit, second round? Congratulations.
Thank you.
But my question for you is, ending the season on this playoff run, this playoff exit, second round, what were you expecting? What were your hopes for the season this year? But I guess the morale, and like you said, talking about these conversations that you had about the trajectory, what were you hoping for this season? Was this more like a rebuild year, or was this taking this momentum that you guys had last season and bringing it forward to this season?
That's a great question. I don't know what I was hoping for or what I was expecting. I think it was really dependent on whether or not Mitch Marner was going to re-sign with the Leafs. I think at the end of
Mm,
last season, I saw it going one of two ways. I felt that since we got to the second round, I felt that was a big improvement. And I thought to myself, it seems like a good trajectory. I feel like if they gave him maybe another year, they could do it.
mhm.
Um, but if they don't re-sign him, he leaves. Are we going to be faced with a rebuild? Are we going to be faced with like we have good players and now we're all good and we can like make it to finals or something?
Yeah.
So I felt like they're still going to do well. I don't think it's a rebuild year. What I really think about is, last year we had Nyes come in and he was just such a hot shot player. Like everybody was like, it's not the core four anymore. It's the core five. Like he's still
Mm,
there. So we have Matthew Nyes, we have Austin Matthews, we have so many good players still on the team that make
yeah.
such an impact that
Yeah.
I didn't really think of it as a rebuild. Had all of the core four gone, I would have been like, yeah, we're not seeing playoffs for quite a while. But I
Okay.
think we still have enough of the impactful players that we can still do well. And I think the new players that we got, like, Michelli came in and he's been doing so well the past couple games that I'm like, I I think we can still make it to playoffs. I think we're still fine. I think they needed a second to kind of get their footing, but now they're on a good stride. For a second in October, I said, "Oh, maybe we are rebuilding," but then I think I was just sad.
I did have written down question for you. Casual Leafs fan, somebody who doesn't really follow the entire season, and I'm not calling myself a casual Leafs fan, but like we can use me for an example. I don't really know what is going on with them right now. I see their record. I see they're not doing horribly. I see they had a bit of a win streak after not doing as well. What would you tell a fan who's not super locked into the Leafs, but kind of just wants to know the general gist of what's going on, what would you tell them to look out for the remainder of the season?
I think top line is always, I know people say they're overhyped and all of this stuff, but I still think the top line is going to perform exceptionally well. We have Matthew Nyes, Austin Matthews, William
Mhm.
Nylander. They're magic, honestly. I forgot which game it was. I'm trying to remember. But there was a game where I remember Matthew Nyes went down, he started going down on the ice, like one knee, did a pass to William Nylander, and he took off down the ice. So it's stuff like that where they just, something about their chemistry.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. The goaltending situation,
I literally have on here goalie situation question mark question mark because I did want to ask about that. So thank you for bringing it up. What the heck is going on with that?
it's been a ride. So I'm a big goalie girl. That's like
Okay.
kind of my favorite position in hockey. I made a TikTok the other day. I said I could hate your team, like Florida Panthers, for example, have a vendetta against them for the rest of my life. It will always
Okay.
be there.
Okay.
Love their goalie. Like I'm never gonna say anything bad about their goalie. So I'm very locked in with Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll. Those are kind of my like two players that I keep a very close eye on of what's going on, how they're performing. And Joseph Woll had to take a leave of absence at the very start of the season. He left training
Okay.
camp early, went on a personal leave of absence. We don't know why. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody really needs to know why.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then it was kind of like, well, what are we going to do now? Because heading into the season, they're like the golden goose. They're a goaltending tandem because they work in tandem throughout the whole season. But the way Toronto did it last season, which I think really worked well and contributed to their success, is the fact that they were having Woll and Anthony Stolarz play about an equal amount. Probably not
Okay.
like exactly a split, but it afforded them the chance to rest.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably, I think, less injuries than we would have had. And
Hmm.
also, when you have two really amazing goalies, why not use both?
Of
You know,
course. a
let's
hundred
not waste
percent.
our talent.
Yeah.
So they did so well last year. I think they broke some sort of Maple Leaf record for goaltending. I can't remember what it is. So heading into the season, they said, we finally have such a solid goaltending situation. We're locked. Like, we're good. Start of the season, Joseph Woll's gone. So now we're in the position of, well, that was like one of our pillars holding up our hopes
Uh,
of getting to playoffs. What are we going to do? So Anthony Stolarz had to step in, kind of take over the workload. We did get Caden Primo for a bit, but his save percentage was like, I think 0.86 or like 80.
yeah.
So he was not a great option. He was really just there for backup, and Stolarz was operating mostly alone, in my opinion. And we definitely saw the effects of it. That's another reason I think October wasn't ideal for the Leafs, was because Anthony Stolarz was exhausted. He was playing most of his games and kind of dealing with a defense that wasn't doing great either. So
Hmm.
just exhausting all around.
Yeah.
Justin, thankfully, is back.
Okay.
He came back, I don't even remember. I think like a couple weeks ago they announced that he's back. But the only issue with that now is there's more time because he has to do a conditioning stint with the Marlies, which he started last night.
Okay.
So he has to play a couple games with them, get into the groove again. And
Okay.
then we're going to bring him back with the Leafs. And I'm hoping probably in the next few weeks, once he's back with the Leafs and we have that solid goaltending situation again,
Hmm.
that it'll help our stride towards the playoffs be a little better. And again, about the locker room. When he came back, you heard nothing but good things from the rest of the team of we missed him, like just his smile, like him being in the locker room is such a big part of our team. So I think having him back not only from a talent perspective on the ice, but also in the locker room as like a good personality and someone that uplifts the team is going to make a big difference.
Totally. Okay, yeah, because I just did a little quick deep dive is not the appropriate word because I knew there were some goalie situations going on, but I started to look into it and I was like, whoa, this is a lot. So
It's
I
very
was like,
confusing.
Kara is going to explain it for us, but kind of going back to that psychology perspective of Stolar's, obviously, like you said, there's the physical aspect, like he's used to splitting it, but then now he's playing like all of these games by himself, and there's that physical aspect, and like you said, the defense not really being there, but then that mental aspect of like his teammate, his equal, almost his tandem partner, whatever, is gone, and you're saying the rest of the team like missed his smiles. You used the word pillar. So having that gone, just that mental piece for Stolarz like must have been tough too to navigate, and like knowing that like now all of the pressure is on you because you're missing this pillar that everybody loves, and
Yeah.
now you got the pressure. So okay, I'm definitely excited to see how that pans out. Like you said too, the goalie position, I think that's almost similar to the kicker in a way of the maybe not. I was going to say the pressure. I think the goalies, if anything, have even more pressure. The most pressure, I think. But the psychology behind that, of the pressure that they go through, and those games where it's like they just didn't perform as well. Well, I think yesterday, Stolarz got pulled, didn't he?
They did. I think it was on the 4th goal from Boston that they were like, "All right, buddy, pack it up." And
Yeah.
then they had Hildeby, who actually is usually the starting goalie for the Toronto Marlies, which is the AHL team.
Got it.
But
Okay.
we got Primo got put out on waivers. He's gone. So Primo's gone. And then they obviously had to make a spot for Joseph to be playing with the Marlies. So they brought
Yeah,
Hildeby up to be
I
Stolarz's
see.
backup, sent Joseph
Okay.
down. So they put Hildeby in, and he actually, I was very impressed with him. I think
Okay. Good for him.
I watched him in a preseason game, if I remember right, and he looked pretty shaky. I was like, "Oh, dang." So when he came in for Boston last night, I said, "Oh, boy, what am I about to see?" But he was pretty steady. He was a lot more steady than I thought he'd be.
Okay. Good for him.
We held us together. We still lost, like, in a very brutal fashion, but
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. I just put a big star. Like, I definitely need to have an episode with the sports psychologist because I've never really thought about, and actually when I studied psychology, I kind of thought about maybe going that route, but
me
it is
too.
quite sad. I never realized this actually now until saying this. Like, I thought about going that route, but I started my degree in 2013. Like at that time I was like, "Oh no, like a female sports psychologist is like never going to be taken seriously in sports." Like,
Aw.
which is so crazy to say, and I can't even believe that I had that thought, but I'm glad that now I don't have that thought at all. I think
Yeah,
they're probably so respected and so valued. I think it's such a valued aspect of sports, and like not even the gender piece there, but more so I think at that time mental health was looked at as not nearly a priority as it is now.
yeah.
So that's really cool to see.
Obviously, this is specific to what I've seen in my life, so I
Yeah.
don't know the statistics about it, but I've noticed that a lot of kind of these, like, rough men that are very, like, traditionally manly
Yeah.
actually prefer female psychologists, and
Mhm.
I think it's because they don't if they're talking to another man about it, they're concerned, "Am I seeming manly enough? I don't wanna be seen
Yeah.
as emotional." So
Mhm.
I'm actually curious as to how many sports psychologists are women, because I wonder if, these men that are subjected to the toxic masculinity within sport, if they do feel more comfortable talking to women because women
Yeah.
are perceived as more emotional. That's always something I've thought about too.
Okay, well, that is so fascinating. And again, I can't believe that I'm really going to be following along with the Leafs here, but it's I think I might be, because everything that you're saying, it sounds like this is kind of a almost make or break season, or like it's just going to be really interesting to see. Let's pivot here a little bit. I would love to hear about your UX design background, your research background. You said that you studied psychology, taking your passion of hockey and combining your past experience to use all of that to make hockey more inclusive and accessible to everybody. Let's hear more about that.
All right. So when I was at MSU and I was studying psychology, got into hockey, that was the first time I had been subjected to people basically telling me that I was not like very welcome in the space. Because I was a student with my college hockey team, I was in this little bubble where it's like,
Okay.
if you're a student, you're a hockey fan. If you go to the games, you're a hockey fan. Like it was almost this bubble where like, not that people didn't see gender within it, but it's kind of like you had a pass.
Yeah.
Wasn't until I chose an NHL team and I started to kind of insert myself in those groups that I was met with a lot of
Interesting.
hostility that I hadn't had at MSU. And that's was
Oh.
very jarring, to the point
Mhm.
where I stopped watching. I said, "I've had enough. Like, this clearly is not an environment that's good for me. These are not people that, like, I wanna interact with. I'm just done." So I actually stopped
Okay.
watching hockey until spring of 2024.
Question. So this was like you still involved with Toronto, like being a Toronto fan.
Yeah, so I, like,
Okay.
started to insert myself in, like, Toronto groups, and, of
Got
course, like,
it.
not all the fans are like that, but there is, or just even people from other teams will see, like,
Mhm.
women enjoying hockey, and they go,
Yeah.
Oh, that's just not right.
Yeah.
So, it's just kinda crazy. So I stopped watching, finished my, psychology degree,
Okay.
started watching spring 2024 Stanley Cup. That's when I, like, dove back in.
Okay.
'Cause I was having a very this ties in with my UX stuff, I promise. But basically, I started getting back into it because I was having a lot of mental health problems, in the
Okay.
spring, and I needed a schedule. It was kind of one of those things where it's bad enough it was hard to get through the day, so the Stanley Cup was perfect because I would schedule the games and be like, "I just have to get through the day and get to this game."
And then just, like, turn your brain off, watch the
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was that, and then inadvertently also the community that came with it because I decided, screw it. Like, I'm going to be a hockey fan of this team, whether people like it or not. Like, I'm not going to listen to people tell me I can't. I'm
I
done. I'm
love
sick
it.
of it. Came in a little hot. I'm not going to lie. I was like, any man that said anything, I was just like, get out of my sight.
That's
But
what I maybe you need to do though, unfortunately, but it
yeah.
works. It
It
works.
worked. It worked. I got, established in it and then kinda dialed it back and started to get more curious about people that were mean to me, which I can touch on
Okay.
later. But this was in the middle of my UX program, so it's 2 years, and in the middle, I got back into hockey, and I said to myself, first of all, how many people are struggling with their mental health and could probably benefit from community like this, and
Mhm.
why aren't they? You don't often see people well, now you are a little bit more, but openly talking about, like, the community that they get from hockey and how it is more than just a game. UX design, for anybody that doesn't know, because a lot of people don't, it stands for user experience, and basically, we conduct research on how people are interacting with products and websites. We take that data, and then we redesign it to make it more accessible, user-friendly, and just more enjoyable in general. Then I kinda started viewing hockey through this lens of what are the fans experiencing? What are people who have never watched the game in their life experiencing when they try to get into this sport?
Mhm.
And that is where I found like my life mission, where I said, I want everybody to have the chance, even if they don't want to take it. I want everybody to have the chance to get into the sport, to feel this community, to feel a sense of belonging, especially with not to bring politics into it, but in the current world we're living in, we're
Mhm.
lacking community. That's such a pivotal part of our lives is being able to connect with each other. So I want everybody to be able to have the opportunity to do that through hockey. Should they choose, I watched it, I hate it, I'm done. That's fine. But at least you had the opportunity. So that's where the UX came in, both for fans and non fans, of looking
Yeah.
at it and saying, what are the barriers to entry? What are current fans frustrated with? Which is honestly, more than I thought. And then how can I fix that? Like, how can I insert
Okay.
myself in the hockey world in a way that I can use my education and use my experience to redesign the fan experience to make it better for everybody, whether you're a fan or not? So that's kind of
Mhm.
where I landed.
I love that. Okay, I'm like furiously writing down everything that you said. Gonna give another shout out. So one of my best friends, Emily, she also is a UX designer. She works for an electronics company, and I had no idea what UX design was, and she explained it too in the exact same way. Like for her, she's like making the website more user friendly, which obviously then contributes to sales, like more sales. So I
Mhm.
was like, wow, okay, that's really cool. And as you were saying that, I'm like, wow, that's so fascinating to try to tie that into sports and hockey in particular. I do think that hockey kind of is a sport where if you're just sitting and watching it and you've never seen it in your life, it
Mhm.
is a little bit confusing. Like you're just seeing people go back and forth. It's
Yeah.
quite fast paced, but then kind of having that like user experience part of it, if you take that lens and like how can you quickly help somebody just have it be more user friendly, have it be more viewer friendly or fan friendly. And it really is so interesting how some people really lean into that connection and that community piece and some people don't. Some people completely ignore it and think that it's like not important. That community piece for me is what made me a football fan, honestly.
Yeah.
Or what really solidified it is finding that community because it just made it so much fun, and it kind of makes me sad for the people who don't have the community or don't who kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like diminish it, I guess. I don't know, or like pass it off, say it's not as important. You said that you kind of looked into it a little bit and we're trying to find out what the current fans are frustrated with, and it surprised you that there was quite a bit. So what do you mean by that? What kind of research were you compiling and what were they frustrated with? I'm curious to hear.
So this also loops into why I started making content on
Okay.
TikTok is because I almost was like, I'm gonna be a little spy and I'm gonna make an account and start talking to people and hear what they're mad about. Like I
Yeah.
wanna let me hear it. Like I and kind of getting on people's pages and seeing what they're talking about.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of UX research, obviously there is a quantitative piece, but a lot of it is qualitative where it's kind of just like, what are people's experiences? What are
Yeah.
they thinking about as they're engaging with hockey? And probably the biggest one that I saw was obviously financial. Hockey, I believe, is probably the most expensive sport you can get into, especially in Toronto with the way the ticket prices are with
Yeah.
Scotiabank. Could talk for hours about that, but that was a big piece. And then another one was a lot of people said it was just a culture thing.
Mm.
They feel nervous asking questions. There's friends that I have at home where I take them to hockey games and they almost say, I don't want to annoy you or like interrupt your game by asking a question. I'm like, no, I want you to ask me a question. No question is stupid to me. Like you could
Mhm.
ask me, what's that frozen stuff on the ground? And I would be like, thank you so much for asking. That is ice. I'm so aware of it now
Yeah.
because I've heard from other people that that was one of the biggest barriers. Things were overly technical. They didn't really give them an environment to ask questions, so they get too nervous. And that actually hit around the same time as I was completing my program and we did a passion project. So my
Okay.
passion project I called Hockey Hub, and it was basically this app that I built. It wasn't completely done, but I did the wireframes for it. And I incorporated everything that I had learned thus far into this app. So I put something in there that was called a hockey helper.
Okay.
So you could download this app as a beginner and say you're in a group setting. People do this all the time. They have friends over, it's a party, they're watching a game. You're sitting there with your phone and something happens on the screen and you're confused. But there's a huge group of people. You don't want to interrupt the game. You don't want to start asking questions. And I say that from experience. You can whip out your phone, open up, and it's an AI thing that will dumb it down to you and explain it to you like you're 5. Get a quick answer and then look at it on the screen without having to ask anybody in the room.
Yeah.
But then if it teaches you that, you then have a talking point with everybody else. And I also talk about, I think this probably applies to other sports as well. Talking about football, talking about hockey is really like a foreign language.
Yeah.
I think, we always talk about how if you learn French, but you're not speaking French in your day to day, you'll lose it. I feel that way about sports. I feel
Yes.
when I'm in environments where I'm with people that know hockey and are very like sports broadcast type of people, I
Mhm.
don't know what comes over my brain. I like almost mentally black out and I just start saying things like, "Oh yeah, that was an apple, like quite the apple." And I'm like, "Girl, what do you mean?" But then if I don't do that for a while, I kind of start to lose it. And I
Yeah.
kind of like forget like
Totally.
terminology. So it was basically this whole idea of how can I make it so people can learn about this sport in a non-judgmental way and then start to put it into their day to day and speak to people. So that was part of the app, and then it also went into a bunch of other stuff like game access and where to watch. Because another financial piece of this is that hockey games are so split across broadcasts and platforms.
My god, yeah, I'm realizing that too. I said I wanna get locked in. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is gonna cost me $1,000,000."
Yeah, if you wanna get locked in, you should probably take out a loan, girl. But yeah, so that was kind of where that came I don't even know where I was going with that.
Well, I mean, I'll interject then because I have so much that I wanna say to that. But you mentioned about how you want to share your knowledge. You want to teach every little thing about hockey because you love it and you wanna share that love of the game. And there are a lot of people, I was gonna say men in particular, but I'm almost thinking now too, like, having a little bit of grace here. It may just be a personality thing too of like people just don't feel like talking. They just don't want to get into it. They're locked in, whatever, that's fine. But there really is that idea of sometimes men just like don't want to share, don't want to talk about it. And it's like if you don't know, then I don't want you watching with me, whatever. It is so interesting because I wrote down there is this like misogyny piece of almost like if you're not born knowing everything, then you're not a valid fan. It would be so interesting to talk to men talking to other men who maybe don't know as much about sports and what their opinions are of them. Because men have this opinion of women who don't know about sports and are talking and like they don't know and it's just like automatically like okay you don't know anything I don't want to talk to you about it and
Mhm.
again this is all blanket statement there's men that aren't
Yeah.
like this and we love those men they're great even the men who are like that we can hope that they learn one day and
Yeah.
whatever but it's like, do they have those same opinions about men? Like, if their male friend came up to them and was like, man, I don't know about hockey. Can you teach me about it? Are they looking at them as this, like, what do you mean you don't know what this play was and like who this player is that you don't know? Oh my God, you're so stupid. Are they calling them that? Or are they like, bro, like, come on in? Like,
Yeah.
is the mentality different there? But I do think your passion and your love for hockey really does come across, and like trying to make it more accessible to people and like not just holding it in tight. And I talked about this in a more recent episode talking about like bandwagon fans again with the Blue Jays in
I
particular.
love that episode, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well,
Eh,
then you know what I'm talking about here, how I kind of said like I can understand, and this too might not even be a gender thing or like a misogyny, anything like that. Like this might just be a personality trait of like people might love something so much and just want to like hold it close to them and not want anybody else to know about it. But
Mhm.
that's not how sports grow.
Yeah.
That's not how like if your goal, as you mentioned at the beginning, you want the NHL to be bigger than the NFL,
Mhm.
which I could see that happening.
I can see it. I will make it
It's
happen. I'm gonna do
I
it.
believe in you, girl. I believe in you. I will still always have football is number 1 in my heart, but I would love to see that, but there's so many shifts that will need to happen with like, for that to eventually happen. With others, it's like that doesn't get you anywhere. Like, you're just one person. Like, it would be amazing if you could show every single person, like, why hockey's amazing and teach every single person, but there must be a way to deliver that information quickly and efficiently and, like, visually appealing, like,
Yeah.
mental like, psychologically too. I'm sure there's a major psychological component to UX design
Oh, yeah.
and just, like, how to get that across. So I love that. I think that is so exciting.
I do have 2 things I would love to touch on that you said,
Please do,
if
please
that's
do.
okay. I love what you said about they wanna hold it close and not share it because it is so near
Mhm.
and dear to their heart. Realizing that blew my mind. There was, like, a few months ago where I was sitting back because I was starting this is when I kinda started to get, like, hate comments on TikTok, and I was like, first of
Mm.
all, there was one guy who was like, "Did your mother not hug you enough as a kid? Why are you being so mean to me?" Because I wanted to know why. I was like, "Why are you being mean to me? You don't even
Yeah,
know me. Like, I'm
yeah.
just here having fun."
Mhm.
And then I was thinking about it more and more, and I thought, okay, let me think about men's relationship with sports. A lot of them, they watch sports with their dad,
Yeah.
who maybe their dad's passed away and it's just like very sacred thing, and they don't want anybody new. They want it to stay exactly like it was when they were watching it with
Mhm.
their dad. If you
Mhm.
have some girl with bouncy hair and heels coming in, you're gonna be like, what is going on? This is
Yeah.
not the sport that I watched with my father. So I think that was a major piece of how I started interacting with the men that were giving me a hard time was instead of meeting that with, "Well, you hate me, I'm gonna hate you too," I was like, "Let me get curious. Let me get curious about why you're acting like this and why you're saying these things." Because sometimes which kind of goes into the clothing thing too, I think it's really just a lack of understanding
Yeah.
because, they're not probably around girls that are very into sports, but also very into fashion. So I think that was another piece of it where you said, like, holding it so tight, but again, not how you grow the sport. You have to understand that, like, there are going to be people that are different from you, and as I said in my TikTok, just like I have to tolerate the people that are mean to me in the sport, you're gonna have to tolerate the fact that I have a space in here too.
I didn't write it down, so maybe you didn't use the word hate, but I think what you said is like these men come in, or this man in particular, like who's just being rude for no reason. Like he kind of sees like you hate me, I hate you, and
Mhm.
I don't know if this is kind of what you meant, but this is kind of where I'm sort of struggling too. Is a lot of my content. I do not hate men. Let me preface this with
No, I
that
know.
whole stare thing. I love men. To a fault,
Yeah.
honestly.
We love
Sometimes.
men. We love men here.
Some days I'm like, "Oh, why?" But I do. I love men, and I love the men that, like, are supportive of this, and the men who don't not even don't see gender, but, like, just, again, wanna build this community piece because they love the sport that they love, and it's like, why would they
Mhm.
not want more people to talk about it? Those are the best men, but there is kinda that piece of with talking online, and this is I'd love to hear your perspective about this, but, like, you mentioned previously about how you kind of went in guns blazing and you're like, I don't care who is going to get mad about this. I'm going to talk about what I want and I don't give a fuck about like what these men are going to say. And there
Yeah.
kind of is that attitude of like, this man is like, okay, well, you hate me. I hate you. So whatever. And sometimes I get into that. Sometimes I'm like, it is easy to fall into like this them versus us mentality from my
Yeah.
side of it because that's what they
Same here.
have. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to take my power back. And like, yeah, sure. You want to be them versus us? Like, okay, I'm going to be them or whatever it is anymore. I don't even know. But like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have this fire and it's going to be against you. Sometimes it's easier to be like, oh, men, like they're acting like this. They're treating us this
Yeah.
way. And I'm going to make content about it, about how I'm fired up about it. Or it can be like, oh, no, like, this is happening and men are treating us this way, but like it's okay. We're not going to get mad about it. Like we're going to build our community anyways. That's a whole different layer of it too. It's like the society piece of telling women that like we're supposed to just be like quiet and like it's okay, we're not going to get mad, but like we are mad and it's annoying. But this is a very long-winded way of saying I want to talk about you posting your thoughts about hockey online, and you post such amazing thoughts. I love watching your videos. I'm learned
Yeah.
so much too about the Leafs. We touched on before. I came across your profile because you had made this amazing TikTok. You touched on like the term puck bunny, how there's that different attitude of people wearing different outfits to games, and you mentioned too like coming in like this bouncy hair, this jersey, these heels, like looking fantastic, and there's just different attitudes around it. So my question for you is, what inspired that sort of conversation, but then also just posting online and posting your thoughts about hockey?
That's a great question. So I kind of just started because, again, I was trying to do kind of some field research about people's experience from the fan side and like even non
Mhm.
fan. And also, I used to be a very insecure person. I think this was kind of something I did to get over the fact that people kept telling me that I wasn't welcome in the space. If I continuously just post and like make myself a part of the space,
Mhm.
and even if people say things, like, I'm still gonna keep posting. It was almost like my retaliation towards people that were like, "We don't wanna see
Retaliation
you
with
here,"
people.
and I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
you're gonna see me on your
Well,
For You."
too
So,
bad.
I'm here. So I started doing that, and initially, I didn't really have any issues because it
Mhm.
was a small following, people weren't paying attention, and I was like, "Oh, whatever." My first Puck Bunny comment, I saw that, and I literally had to put my phone away for the rest of the day. I literally called up my mother. I said, "Listen to what just happened to me." I sisters. I told my brother, and he was like, "That is appalling." And I was like, "Yes, king." And then this specific person has been repeatedly on some of my videos.
Oh, they're a fan. They're a
And
fan.
I was like, "Thank you for the engagement." So that kind of was what gave rise to it because then I went to Toronto for it was a preseason game, and I
Okay.
was so excited. This whole experience was gonna be perfect. It was for my mom's birthday. I had finally turned my mom into a Maple Leafs fan. Her and I
Mhm.
had, like, Joseph Woll matching jerseys. I was so excited. Like, there was not a negative thing associated with this event. So, we're getting ready for the game, and I am struggling with my outfit as, like, who doesn't?
Yeah.
So, I was like, "Let me put some outfit options on TikTok, and people can tell me what they think I should wear." So, I did that.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. I had a lot of positive things. And then, after the game, I went back to the video, and what started to roll in, which this is a piece I really wanted to talk about, men and women going after me
Oh,
for what I was wearing. And I was
interesting.
this is crazy because also I ran it by both my mom and dad before we
Mhm.
went to and they were
Yeah.
like, "You look nice." And they would tell me if they were like, "You look like a hussy." Like, they would be like, "That is not something you should probably wear to this game."
Yeah.
So
Or
I knew
anywhere, probably, I would
yeah.
imagine. Yeah.
So I was like, I know that I am not inappropriate right now. Like, I know that to my core.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of men being like, this is not the place for heeled cowgirl boots. And I was just like, first of all, every place is a place for heeled cowgirl boots. And then also, like, I had worn this, like, white dress with some shorts under it, like, under my jersey, just
Yeah.
because it was comfy and stuff like that. And everyone was laying into me being like, the rink is cold. You don't know what you're getting into. Like, it's so cold. And I said, if you guys would've just asked me, "Hey, why? Get curious. Why did you
Yeah.
wear that to the game?" I would tell you, I get overheated at the games
Yeah.
because I'm so excited, so I wore a dress so that I wouldn't overheat. I'm aware that it's cold here. And the heels thing, that was the most comfortable footwear that I had on the trip.
Yeah.
So, that's why I chose it. I had that, like, coming from men, and then later on, I started getting these comments from a couple girls who were, like, kind of older women. They were like, "I'm sick of girls dressing like it's a concert for hockey games. It's not the place for it, all this stuff." And what I'm going to say may be a little controversial.
Okay,
I'm
let's
going
hear
to do
it.
it. So I used to be a tomboy. When I was a
Okay.
kid, I played video games. I hung out with boys all the time. And I almost think that some girls do that as like a safety mechanism where if you are like parroting the same things that men are saying and you kind of try to make yourself part of their group as if
Mhm.
you're protected from the hate that they will give you as a woman. And I learned very fast when I was younger that it does not indeed protect you from the hate of men. They'll just do it behind your back. I was looking at these women who were commenting and being like, "Yeah, like, I'm with the men who are hating on you, like, it's not appropriate, like, it's ridiculous." And I was like, "It's crazy because you think that you're so different from me," but I was like, "These men hate you just the same. They don't want you in the sport either." So I think that was very jarring for me because I was just like, "Wow, I kind of thought we were in the same girl group type of thing where we're trying to, like, make a space for women in sports,
Yeah.
and yet you're here hating on me." And so
Yeah.
that was kind of like a really crazy piece that I wanted to include because I think speaking to like the larger cultural issue in hockey, it's not just coming from men.
Yeah,
Majority of
that's
it
a good
does come
point.
from men, but I do really want to highlight for people that because I know men are like, oh, not all men. I'm not just talking about men. I'm talking about men,
Yeah.
about women who do it. I'm talking about, older adults that do it. It's like this is not just a men versus women thing. This is a whole just humanity thing of how we treat it.
Yeah. A whole, yeah, systemic, societal thing. Like, I love the point that you're making too, that there's a group of people that have an attitude of, or the belief of, there's a specific look of a hockey fan, and that's them. That's like this
Mhm.
group. Like, it needs to look like this group. It's so fascinating. And I really do hope that it changes one day. That would be
Which is
nice.
why I made the that's when, one day I came home and I remember talking to my parents about it, like, even my dad, who's a very
Hmm.
traditionally, like, manly guy.
Hmm.
I was like, "I'm just so sick of it." Like, I went on this whole rant with my family, and then after they were like, "No, like, you're right, girl. Like, you're not wrong." And then I thought to myself, "Well, let me just go repeat that, but on camera."
I was wondering that too because your rants, I guess we'll just call them that for
It
the
was a
sake of
rant. It was
this.
an angry rant.
But, like,
Yeah.
I've seen a few of them, and you're so articulate with your thoughts, and, like, they seem very well thought out, but, like, I
Thank you.
notice it, like, you kinda just put, like, one cut out there, and you just, like, let it go. So, are you, like, writing these out in advance, or are you just, like, thought comes to your mind, and you're just speaking your feelings there?
So that's just how I talk.
Nice. I
So
love
I
that.
I have this thing with my TikTok. I have, like, a couple boundaries and rules with, like, how I interact with it because I think it's a very slippery slope with social
Yes.
media, and
Yes.
I also, as I've said before, like, I really struggle with my mental health, so I need to put rules in place, and one of those
Mhm.
is that I am not going to be the traditional, like, influencer, not that there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to do 80 takes for a TikTok. I'm not going to sit there and, like, just get anxious about the way that I'm editing it, so I have a rule where I say, like, for that rant, I started the camera, I said what I said, and it went up. I did not
Love
rewind
it.
it. I did not cut anything out. I said what I said.
Crazy.
I said what I said. Here it is, guys. And that's why I was
Good
like,
for
5 minutes.
you.
I looked at the time and I said, "Girl, that was 5 minutes. Shut up." I was like, "Why did you just talk for so long?"
Well, see, that's my problem, and, like, with editing and stuff is, like, I can freaking talk and, like
Yeah.
but that's honestly that is such a good point, and I think the authenticity comes across so much because I
Thank
often
you.
do get stuck in this hole. It's like, well, I need a hook. I need something that's, like, gonna keep people engaged, and it's like, well, if people are gonna be like, people's engagement levels and, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Their attention spans are, like, fucked. So, like, if they're not gonna be engaged in the content, they're not gonna be engaged in the content. If they are,
Yeah.
they are. That's, like, really just it.
Yeah, it's kind
Um,
of how that goes.
yeah, so it's like, why do I, like, worry about, like, "Okay, I need to say this," and then, like, not ramble too much about this because then it's gonna, like, lose engagement in people. But again, if people are finding what I'm saying interesting to them, they'll watch. If they
Yeah.
don't, that's okay. That's it. I don't need to worry too much about all the extras, so I love that you've done that.
Then another piece of that of why I do it is because I think I've got caught in this cycle of when I'm about to talk to a man or like somebody who I know will probably give me trouble about being a hockey fan, I almost rehearse what I'm going to say in my head and I try to make it
Mhm.
perfect so that
Mhm.
there's no holes in what I've said and they can't go after me for anything. And I think that especially when I started getting back into hockey, it was a huge problem for me. So
Yeah.
that's another reason why on TikTok, I will not go through and like make sure everything I said was perfect because the other day I made a TikTok and I said something wrong. Like
Yeah.
I was wrong about something. And I want other girls to see that. It is okay. Like I am someone who literally has built my platform on talking about
Mhm.
hockey. And
Yeah.
I too will mess up sometimes. I will
People
misspeak.
make
I
mistakes.
will
Yeah.
yeah, I will like not know certain information. I'm still learning. I think in life, you are learning forever, even with
Mhm.
rule changes in sports.
Yeah.
Nobody is ever going to know everything to a T. Kind of trying to, like, shake that expectation that everything's, like, perfect and, like, you know everything. It's like, no, you can
Mhm.
say off the wall shit and, like, be wrong. That's okay.
Yeah, totally, and I've said this in the past, well, 2 things to that. I've said this in the past, and it's like, even the professional sports analysts they're reading off of a teleprompter half of the
Yeah.
time. Like, when they're just shooting the shit and chatting, like, they have everything already written out of what they are going to talk about. Yeah, they're professionals, and I'm sure they do know more than me and the average person. Like, I would hope so. They're getting paid a ton of money. Like,
Hope
you
so.
would hope that they're qualified, but, like, still, they're reading things off, and still they make mistakes. Sometimes
Mhm.
the incorrect information gets out there, so I think that is so important to mention. But you mentioned about, like, holes, and, like, when you're talking to men in particular that you think are gonna give you a tough time, you don't wanna have any holes, and I
Mhm.
laughed thinking about that because I too am the same way, but I think also too, and I don't know if this is just a personality thing or again, we grew up and the women aren't supposed to call people out, but it's like I talk to men. Typically, these are men that I have like good relationships with and I enjoy talking to sports about them, but like they'll be incorrect about something or there'll be a hole in something. I I keep my mouth
Me
shut.
too. I
I
have
don't
the
say
same
a thing.
problem.
Because why would I? Like what's the point? I don't wanna be like a gotcha, like you got it wrong, like who cares? Because also I know like how that makes me feel. And I do also think and then I could be incorrect about this, but I do think a lot of the time there is that gotcha from them because it is a gender-based thing and
Mhm.
and maybe they would say that with another male friend if they were talking about sports and said the exact same thing that I would. Actually, no, I know for a fact that they wouldn't because when I talk, well, again, not my friends, but online and Twitter specifically, like I know for a fact if a man and a woman posted the exact same thing, the comments and replies are completely different, but that's a
Mhm.
whole different thing. But yeah, I just thought that was so funny. Nobody's perfect, especially when you're just talking the way that
Yeah.
the brain works, like the brain is not a perfect machine. Like things sometimes get forgotten, things get said, misspoke too. Like it really doesn't matter. And I know that it doesn't matter. So I don't call people out on that because it doesn't do anything other than just makes them get in their head more. And then, like you said, makes them rehearse and makes them try to have everything perfect, which then kind of further instills, like you said, other women watching you and being like, oh, well, she talks about hockey so perfectly and she never gets
Mhm.
anything wrong. So, like, if I can't do that, then I can't go out there and talk about hockey or the sport that I love because sometimes I do make mistakes. And
Yeah.
that's not helpful for anybody. So thank you for sharing that piece. That is a really nice segue though into my final question for you. And I ask this of every guest that comes on here. Obviously the name of the show it's called the Name One Player podcast. And that came to be from deciding that I was going to make a podcast for women who love sports and kind of creating this space where there's no men who are asking us to name one player. And I thought it would be fun to kind of poke fun at the fact that we do get asked to name one player
We
quite
do.
frequently. So you've already touched on some of them, but I would love to know if you have any specific name one player stories that you would like to share.
I do. My favorite one, which has actually happened right when I was getting back into hockey, and I think why I came in guns a-blazing, was because
Okay.
I had an ex-boyfriend who I ran into after we had broken up, and his friend also resides in Michigan and is a Blackhawks fan.
Okay.
So when I saw them, I said, "Oh, I'm, like, watching hockey," and of course, they were like, "Well, you've never watched hockey," and I was just like, "No, I have, like, you guys just don't ask me questions." But I told them I was a Maple Leafs fan, and they said, "No, you can't be a Maple Leafs fan because you live in Michigan." And I was like, "But you see, what's funny about that is I was like, your friend is a Blackhawks fan, and he does not live in Chicago. You
Yeah.
would have by their reactions that I had just shot someone. They were
Yeah.
like, 'How dare you say that to him?' They were like, 'His dad is from Chicago, and it's like a really sacred thing with his dad.'" And I was like, "That's beautiful. That's gorgeous. I love that for him." But I said, "I'm just pointing out the fact that, like, he told you he was a Blackhawks fan, and you accepted it with
Yeah.
no hesitation, but I
Yeah.
say it, and you're grilling me on well, first of all, telling me I can't be a Toronto fan, and also grilling me on why Toronto, and then every single reason I came up with because this was when I was getting back into the space, and I, like, almost collapsed in on myself, and I was, like, trying to, like, give them an answer that would be good enough, and none of them were.
Mhm.
So I was like,
Mm.
the colors, the vibes, I don't know." But it was funny just that seeing that double standard in one conversation was very jarring. I was like, "That was crazy."
Well, you told me this story before we hit record, and I think the craziest part about this is that you dated this man for what you said, like 2 years?
2 years.
And he didn't even know that, like, you did follow hockey before, and like you said, like, "Well, if you, like, guys ever ask me a question about myself, then maybe you'd
And
know."
you would
So
know.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I wrote this down too because I'm curious, like, if you were a Red Wings fan and you'd said, "Oh, I love the Red Wings," yeah, it wouldn't have been met with like, "Oh, well, you have to like the team in your city." It probably would have been Well, you only like them because that's the team that's closest to you.
Yep.
It's but I also wanna mention here in the same breath, like, people do change, attitudes do change. I wanna be very clear on that, so I do really love to see when people's minds do change, and I really do think the work that you're doing is changing that. I really hope I think back to, like, all the people who have told me their name on player stories, and I just
Yeah.
fingers crossed that there's, like, a little glimmer of an opinion change.
I think it's getting there. One last thing I'll say about my platform that I'm really trying hard is to make it a space where we can talk to each other. When people get
Yes.
on my TikToks and they're being very hateful, I give them a
Yeah.
chance to. I try to
Yeah.
talk to them and explain and say, let's get curious about each other. Like, why are you
Yes.
saying this? They're like, let's talk about hockey. About on like the third time that they're doing it, they're still disrespectful, they get blocked.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a very thin line to walk. But I'm
Yes.
really just trying to show people and give them an inside look onto, like, I'm a girl with bouncy hair who's wearing heels to
Mhm.
hockey games who a lot of people probably hate. I'm trying to show people that we are all the same. Like, deep down, we're all here for the same reason. We're
Mhm.
all watching sports, trying to have fun. This sport has really helped me, like, with my relationship with my mom and dad. It was already good, but, like, I've gotten so much closer with them by having this sport and having this thing that we connect on. So it's like we're all engaging in these behaviors, we're all doing these things. We're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to have fun and trying to enjoy life. And we're really not that different. And I think that's what I'm trying to get across to people is that it's very much this us versus them mentality. We're all here for the same thing. So it's like, let's approach each other with some curiosity. Stop focusing on how we're different and start focusing on how we're the same. I want to
I love it.
also shout out Doug on TikTok. I think it's Ice Bag Hockey Cards. He got on one of my TikToks and was basically going to bat for me,
Love it.
and I just wanted to shout him out because I think it's so important also to highlight the people that are doing very good work, like, on the men's
Yes.
side of
Yes.
defending women on the internet and supporting them, so I just wanted to quick shout out to Doug. Thank you.
Doug, you
Doug,
we love that. We
he's a
love
fan.
that, and it's so true, and, like, I joke that this well, not I joke, like, this podcast is a space for women to come on and talk about the sports that they love without men asking them to name one player, like, that's a
Yeah.
little slogan, but, like, this podcast is not just for women to listen to, and I think, like, it's so important, and I have so many men reach out to me and be like, "Wow, hearing this perspective really shifted things for me," and it's so important, but then the extra step in that is, like Doug is doing, being vocal about it. We need these men to speak up, and when they notice other people in the hockey community or sports community all throughout, when they notice people being non-inclusive and just shutting them out for whatever reason, and also just being rude, like, shut it down. Like, it's not necessary, and as I say that too, I'm thinking, like, that's my responsibility too, that's everybody's responsibility. It's like,
Yeah.
if you see somebody being unkind in the sport that everybody loves, like you said, everybody is there for the same reason, it's
Mhm.
because they love the sport and they enjoy the sport, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be a place for these not nice people, and we gotta shut it down.
The world is so hard. It's like,
Yeah,
let's make sports the one spot where we can all just come to, like, rest our minds a little bit.
literally. Well, you said something too that it was, like, just more than hockey, and I think that would be such a great episode to do about, like, why sports are more than sports itself, but
Mhm.
then, yeah, kind of we touched on this before, like, why some people don't like that. Like,
Yeah.
why it should only be the
I'm
sport.
actually trying to dive into that a little more and, like, try to understand it from their perspective, so I'd love to
Yeah.
come in and talk about literally everything.
Well, you said too, like, get curious, and I circled that a few times, wrote it down and circled it because you mentioned it a few times, and I completely agree. I think that is like, I almost feel grateful that I have that mindset, and, like, there are people like you who do have that mindset where it's like, you see anything and you're just curious about it. You're curious about that
Yeah.
why, and it probably might come from our psychology background, but actually that's why I wanted to study psychology because there were
Mhm.
so many things in my life and so many people in my life, and I was like, "Why do they act the way that they do?"
Why are
And
you
then I
the way that
realized,
you
like,
are?
that was psychology, and I was like, "Oh, okay, like, I guess I'll study that." But
Yeah.
I do think it is so cool to be able to go through life that way. Sometimes it leads to more problems though, because you get curious and then you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
fuck, like, now I know way
I
more."
didn't wanna know that.
Sometimes life is more simple the less you know, but, the whole ignorance is bliss, but I don't
Oh,
actually agree with
yeah.
that, but sometimes but I love what that you're encouraging these people who maybe are coming on to into your comments finding their way to you and encouraging them to get curious about like why they're actually thinking this way. Like where are these thoughts coming from? Like what like
Mhm.
and it's really cool when we can see that like eureka moment, and it is too bad sometimes when you know it's not gonna happen. So you're just like, okay, block.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes it doesn't happen, but every interaction I think where we come to a place of understanding, I think is growing the sport a little bit more, and that's really all I can hope
mhm.
for.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Kara, thank you so much for coming on. Such a lovely conversation. Can you tell everybody where they can follow you on social media if they want to hear more about your rants, your very insightful thoughts about hockey?
Yes, I'm on TikTok, just at Cara Thoman. I'm same thing on Instagram, and I also just started up an Instagram page called Girls Guide to Hockey, where I post graphics, kind of honestly dumbing down hockey terminology and things that happen so that the average person can understand it. So you can find me
I
there.
love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, Kara, thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
rest of your
you.
day.
You too.
Thank you so much to Kara for coming on. What an awesome conversation. I always write notes as I'm doing the episode, and like my notes list is like completely full. I would have had to turn the page if we talked any longer. I feel like this conversation about community and building community in a very easy and user friendly way is so important. And talking about sports growing, and I think a lot of people might think that sports don't need to grow. There is this idea that like hockey is popular, so like why grow it? But I do really think that goal of having hockey end up being bigger than the NFL, like viewership wise and just like passion wise. I mean, that might work out well for me because then maybe Minnesota Vikings tickets will be cheaper. I don't know. But yeah, that's such a fascinating concept. And I'm really excited to see the work that Kara does and all of the really interesting and engaging conversations she's starting about hockey on her TikTok. I highly recommend that everybody go and check it out. And like she said, get curious. Get curious about your thoughts that you have about whatever sport you love. I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to get curious about the attitudes that I have surrounding this like them versus us mentality. Is it necessary? No, of course it's not necessary. Does it keep my podcast running though? To an extent it does, because I've joked about this. I will never run out of name one player stories. I will never run out of opportunities to talk to women and have them tell me about the times that they've been treated differently. But it is so nice to see that it is shifting and that attitudes are changing. So again, thank you so much to Kara for joining us. I hope you all had as much fun listening to the episode as I had having that conversation with Kara. If you did love the episode, I'd love it if you let me know. Depending on what platform you're listening on, you may be able to comment on the episode. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agreed with Kara, what she said, or if you have any other thoughts. You know, we can get curious together. I think that would be really fun. I would also love it if you could rate the Name on Player podcast, like the Name on Player podcast, follow whatever platform you're listening on, whatever option it gives you. The engagement means so much to me, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you so much. I think that is all from me this week. Me and Kara were recording on Sundays, so it is. Oh, guess what, guys? It's 9:55. Football is starting in 5 minutes. I have to get out of here and I have to go turn on the Minnesota Vikings game. They're playing the Ravens. So this game is a bit of a toss up. I'm curious if any of the big analysts picked the Vikings to win, because guess what? Nobody picked the Vikings to win against the Lions last week. Nobody. Zero people. Zero sports analysts. I mean, actually, that's not even true. I was going to say I picked the Vikings to win. I didn't pick the Vikings to win against the Lions. I didn't think they were going to win that game, and they did. And it was beautiful. I loved it. It was great, and I'm excited to go, fingers crossed, watch the Vikings win again. I guess on Thursday, by the time this episode is out, the Vikings will have either won, and if they have, I'm really happy. And if they haven't, hopefully it hasn't been a ridiculous, heartbreaking loss. And if it has been that loss, anybody listening, please don't be laughing at me too hard, because I'm probably in pain. So yeah, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go watch the Vikings. Thank you again to every single person for listening today. It means the absolute world to me, and I am so happy that you are here, and I am excited for you to come back next week. All right, everyone, take care. Bye.